I saw her as a friend. I could ask anything, even the things I was too embarrassed to ask anyone else. And she never made me feel like she was giving me lectures. She simply shared the lessons life had taught her. Then she left the decision in my hands. Today, when I look back at many of the decisions I made in my life, I realized that somewhere behind them was her voice. She did not teach me how to become wealthy. She taught me how to make sure wealth never became the owner of my life. She did not teach me how to impress people. She taught me that a person should first be impressed by his own character. And the strangest part is that when she entered my life, I had absolutely no idea that a woman I barely knew would one day become one of my most valuable friends. At that time, I was living my life in Dubai. Around me was everything people usually call success: tall buildings, luxury cars, a beautiful home, travel, business meetings, and a lifestyle that looked almost perfect from the outside. But the truth was that I was missing something very important: experience. I had achieved many things, but when it came to understanding life, I was still very inexperienced. I judged people too quickly. I looked at someone's clothes and tried to understand their status. I saw someone's silence and assumed it was arrogance. I saw someone's success and assumed they were happy. And sometimes I saw someone's tears and thought they were weak. Then one day I met her. She was sitting quietly in a peaceful place. She looked at me and smiled, and our very first conversation became a lesson for me. She asked me, "Why you always in such a hurry?" I laughed and said, "Life is fast." She looked at me and replied, "Life is not fast. We are the ones running after it." At the time, I did not think much about her words, but years later, I realized she was right. I was wasting every moment of my life trying to reach the next one. She was older than me. Maybe that was why she had already seen more seasons of life than I had. She had seen happiness. She had seen loss. She had seen people come and go. She had experienced success, and she had experienced failure too. But the most beautiful thing about her was that she had never allowed those experiences to turn into bitterness. She never spoke about people with hatred. She never talked about her past just to prove someone else was wrong. She used to say, "Every person is walking with a story of their own. So before judging someone, remember that you may not know their entire story." That sentence became a very important lesson for me because I admit that I used to judge people too quickly. I thought a person with money was successful, a beautiful person was happy, a powerful person was strong, and a quiet person was weak. She changed all those definitions for me. One day, we were driving through a busy street in Dubai. I was driving my car. I saw a man standing on the side of the road. I looked at him and continued driving. Suddenly, she said, "Did you see him?" I said, "Yes." She replied, "No, you did not really see him. You only looked at him while passing by." I slowed the car down. She said, "Sometimes a person only needs to feel that the world has not ignored them." I looked at the man again through the mirror. He really did look troubled. I stopped the car and I helped him. When I returned, she smiled. I asked her, "Why did you make me stop?" She said, "Because you have the ability to help, and when a person has the ability to help, their true character is revealed by how they use that ability." That day, I understood something for the first time. A person's true worth is not determined by what they have. It is determined by what they do with what they have. As time passed, our friendship grew. She became one of those people I could talk to without thinking twice. I told her about my successes. I told her about my worries. I told her about my dreams, and I even told her about my mistakes. She did not agree with everything I said, and that was exactly why I trusted her. If I was wrong, she told me I was wrong. If I treated someone unfairly, she stopped me. If I became too proud of my success, she would smile and say, "The place you are standing today will not always belong to you. So never forget the ground beneath your feet." Sometimes her words made me angry, but a few days later, I would realize she was never against me. She was trying to protect me from becoming someone I did not want to be. She taught me that someone who constantly praises you is not necessarily your well wisher. Sometimes the person who points out your mistakes is the person who truly cares about you. One night, I was extremely confused. There were several important decisions in front of me. I was thinking about money, business, the future, and I wanted every decision to be made immediately. I said to her, "Tell me what I should do." She replied, "I cannot make the decision for your life." I asked, "Then how will you help me?" She smiled and said, "I will not give you the answer. I will give you the right questions." I became quiet. She asked me, "If money were not an issue, what would you choose?" I had no answer. Then she asked, "If you were not afraid of being judged, what would you want?" Again, I remained silent. Then she asked, "If you were not afraid of failure, which path would you take?" Those questions shook something inside me because for the first time I realized I was making many of my decisions not because of what I wanted, but because of what I was afraid of. That night, she did not tell me which road to take. She simply helped me hear the voice that had been buried inside me. And perhaps that was the greatest lesson she ever gave me. Make your decisions according to your conscience, not according to the noise around you. As time passed, I started learning more and more from her. She taught me how to understand money instead of simply spending it. She once said, "Before buying something expensive, ask yourself whether you actually need it or whether you simply want to prove that you can afford it." I laughed because I knew she was talking about me. I used to buy many things simply because I could. She taught me something different. A beautiful life and an expensive life are not the same thing. A beautiful life is one where you have peace, people you love, respect for yourself, and a heart that does not feel heavy when you go to sleep. For the first time, I began looking at my luxury lifestyle differently. I still loved my cars, but I started enjoying the journeys more than the cars themselves. I still loved my beautiful home, but sometimes the quiet little place where we sat and talked meant more to me. I still enjoyed expensive restaurants, but sometimes a simple meal stayed in my memory longer because it came with a meaningful conversation. And I realized something: memories are not created by price, they are created by feelings. One day I asked her, "What is the hardest lesson life has taught you?" She remained silent for a long time. Then she said, "People will not always give you what you give them, and you should not allow that to break you." I asked, "Then what should a person do?" She said, "A good person is not good because everyone treats them well. They are good because they refuse to let other people's behavior control their character." That sentence stayed in my heart because for the first time I understood becoming a bad person because someone treated you badly means giving that person control over your character. She also taught me how to forgive, but with one important difference. She used to say, Forgiving someone and allowing them to hurt you again are not the same thing. You can forgive someone and still protect your boundaries. That lesson was extremely important for me because I often gave people too many chances. And those same people disappointed me again and again. She told me, keep your heart soft, but never let your mind fall asleep. I still remember those words. A soft heart and an awake mind. Maybe there is no better rule for living. One day I asked her, why do you teach me so many things? She laughed and said, I do not teach you anything. I simply show you what already exists inside you. I said, but I am learning so much from you. She replied, then use those lessons in your life because knowledge that does not change your character is only information. That day, I remained quiet for a long time. I realized that she was not simply my friend anymore. She had become a mirror for my life. She showed me the things I was hiding from myself. And perhaps that was why our friendship became so special. She was older than me, but I never looked at her simply because of her age. I respected her because of her experience, her understanding, her humanity, and the way she could feel the pain of other people. Then one day, she was the one going through a difficult time, and this time I saw her sitting quietly. I asked her what happened. She said, nothing. I smiled and said, that is the sentence I always use. She laughed, but I could see the tears in her eyes. That day I told her, you taught me that a person should never be left alone during difficult times. Today it is my turn. Tell me everything. She remained silent for a while. Then she shared her problem with me. I did for her what she had done for me so many times. I did not try to solve everything. I simply stayed beside her. That day I understood another meaning of love. Being present in someone's life only when everything is going well is not true friendship. A real relationship is when you remain beside someone during their difficult days too. Even when you have no solution, sometimes your presence is enough. That was the most beautiful thing about our friendship. We never tried to change each other. We simply helped each other become better. And perhaps that was why, with time, a deep respect began growing in my heart for this woman. Respect that was difficult to express in words. I learned about life from her. I learned about people. I learned about love. I learned about silence. And most importantly, I learned how to understand myself. But I did not know yet that this friendship was not going to remain just a lesson in my life. It was going to become a turning point that would change my feelings, my understanding, and eventually my entire life. Because one day she was going to ask me a question I would not be able to answer with words. And that question was, do you see me only as your friend, or am I something more to you? That was the first time I became afraid of my own silence. That question stayed in my mind for days. Do you see me only as your friend, or am I something more to you? I had no answer. Not because I did not know what I felt, but because I knew exactly what I felt. And I was afraid of saying it. She was older than me. She had taught me so much. She had become the person I trusted most. And somewhere along the way, my respect for her had quietly turned into something deeper, something warmer, something I could no longer call only friendship. But I was afraid that if I said it, I might lose the most beautiful friendship I had ever known. One evening, We were sitting together overlooking the Dubai skyline. The city was shining beneath us. The buildings were covered with lights. Cars were moving through the streets, and everything around us looked perfect. But neither of us was speaking. Finally, she looked at me and said, "You are thinking too much again." I smiled. I said, "Maybe I am afraid of making a mistake." She asked, "What kind of mistake?" I looked at her, and for the first time, I decided not to hide behind silence. I said, "The mistake of losing you." She remained quiet. I continued, "You came into my life as a friend. You taught me how to understand people. You taught me how to control my anger. You taught me how to respect time. You taught me how to deal with failure. You taught me that money cannot buy peace. You taught me that helping someone can be more valuable than impressing them. And somewhere between all those lessons, I started loving you." She did not look away. She simply listened. Then she asked, "Are you sure it is love?" I said, "I do not know what else to call it. Because when I am happy, you are the person I want to tell. When I am worried, you are the person I want beside me. When I make a mistake, you are the person whose opinion matters to me. And when I imagine my future, I cannot imagine it without you." She lowered her eyes, and for a few seconds there was complete silence. Then she said something I will never forget. "I was afraid you would say that." I asked, "Why?" She said, "Because I was afraid I felt the same way." At that moment, everything became quiet. The city was still shining. The cars were still moving. The world was still continuing. But for us, it felt like time had stopped. I did not promise her a perfect life because I had learned enough from her to know that perfect lives do not exist. I only promised her one thing. Whenever life becomes difficult, I will not run away. She looked at me and said, "That is the only promise I ever wanted." We did not rush into anything. We gave ourselves time. We talked about our fears, our families, our dreams, our differences, our future. And most importantly, we talked about what love really meant to both of us. She told me, "Love is not finding someone who makes every day easy. Love is finding someone who makes you brave enough to face the difficult days." That sentence changed the way I looked at relationships forever. Because before meeting her, I thought love was about happiness. After knowing her, I understood that love was also about responsibility. It was about showing up. It was about listening. It was about forgiveness. It was about patience. It was about choosing the same person again and again, even after seeing their weaknesses. And perhaps that was the greatest lesson she ever gave me. She never made me feel that I had to become someone else to deserve love. She made me want to become a better version of myself, not because she demanded it, but because her presence made me want to be better. I started changing the way I treated people. I became more patient. I stopped judging people so quickly. I learned to listen before answering. I learned that being successful does not give you permission to disrespect someone. I learned that a person's position in society does not determine their value. And I learned that sometimes the person sitting quietly in the corner of the room may have more wisdom than everyone who is trying to be heard. She taught me to appreciate time. Before her, I thought time was something we had plenty of. After her, I understood that time is the only thing we can never buy back. A luxury car can be replaced, a house can be rebuilt, money can be earned again. But a moment that has passed will never return. So I began paying attention to small moments: morning conversations, quiet dinners, long drives, simple laughter, a hand placed gently on my shoulder, a look that said everything without words. Those moments became more valuable to me than anything I could purchase. She also taught me about failure. One of the biggest fears I had before meeting her was failing. I wanted everything to go perfectly. I wanted every decision to succeed. I wanted people to respect me. And when something went wrong, I took it personally. She once told me, failure is not proof that you are worthless. It is proof that you tried something that did not work. Learn from it, change your direction, and continue walking. I asked her, what if I fail again? She smiled, then fail better. That simple sentence stayed with me because life is not about avoiding every fall. It is about learning how to stand again. She taught me that success without character is empty. She taught me that wealth without gratitude becomes greed. She taught me that beauty without kindness becomes meaningless. She taught me that intelligence without humility can become arrogance. And she taught me that love without respect cannot survive. There were days when we disagreed. There were moments when we misunderstood each other. There were times when both of us became silent, but she never allowed an argument to become a war. She would say, we are on the same side. The problem is on the other side. Do not turn each other into enemies because you are fighting the same problem. That became one of the most important lessons in my life because sometimes people who love each other stop fighting the problem and start fighting each other. She taught me not to do that. She taught me to listen even when I disagreed, to apologize when I was wrong, and to forgive when she was wrong, not because one person had to win, but because the relationship was more important than winning. As our relationship became deeper, I began to understand why age had never mattered to me. She was older, but her age was never what I saw. I saw her wisdom, her patience, her strength, her kindness, her ability to understand pain without making people feel ashamed of it. And I realized something. Sometimes society teaches us to look at numbers, but the heart looks at character. A person's age can tell you how many years they have lived. It cannot tell you how deeply they have learned from those years. She had lived enough to understand things I was still trying to discover, and instead of making me feel inexperienced, she helped me grow. That is what a good person does. They do not make you feel small because they know more. They help you become strong enough to know more yourself. Eventually, we decided to build a life together. And when I look back now, I realized that the most important part of our relationship happened before marriage. It happened when we had nothing to prove to each other, when there were no titles, no promises, no expectations, just two people helping each other through life. That is where our love became real. Not in expensive places, not in beautiful surroundings, not in grand celebrations, but in ordinary moments when she was there for me and when I was there for her. Today, when I think about everything she taught me, I realize that she did not simply teach me how to love a woman. She taught me how to become a better human being. She taught me that a man can be strong and still be gentle. He can be successful and still be humble. He can have money and still understand the value of simple things. He can lead others and still know when to listen. And most importantly, he can love someone without trying to control them. That woman became my friend before she became the person I loved. And perhaps that is why our relationship became so strong, because friendship gave our love a foundation. We knew each other's weaknesses, we knew each other's fears, we knew each other's difficult days, and still we chose each other. That is what I believe real love is. Not loving someone because they are perfect, but loving them after you have seen that they are human. I often think about the younger version of myself, the man who believed that happiness was hidden inside the expensive things, the man who thought being strong meant never admitting that he was hurting, the man who thought asking for help was weakness, the man who believed that